Hello everyone and welcome along to me having a good old rugby chat. To all of you folk out there tuning into the channel, thank you for joining me for this one. I am Cornflake and I will be here to have a bit of a chat, have a bit of a chinwag with you all about one of the biggest games coming up in recent rugby years. This one is the Super Rugby Final. Now, we've followed up the semi-finals, a bit of a preview we did a couple of weeks ago and a review a few days ago about what happened to those woeful Australian sides, and now, well, it's just two New Zealand sides left alone by themselves. So for me, a New Zealander, this is a fantastic result. So it's the Hurricanes at home, Westpac Stadium in Wellington, to face against the Highlanders from Otago. If you're unaware of what is happening, or you've been living under a rock, or like an ostrich, you've poked your head down in the sand and completely oblivious as to what's happening, then now's the time to get up to date. It's Hurricanes Highlanders, it's Super Rugby Final. The trophy apparently I've heard is lost, but it's alright, we will play on anyway. This match is going to be massive. I'm going to go over a few little talking points here with you guys who I expect to see posting some comments down below telling me what you think as well. I want to hear, I want to know what you all think about this match. I want to know what you all think about what my opinions are as well, whether you agree, disagree, whether you think I'm talking absolute rubbish or not, because in the end, that is just our opinions and we are all very much entitled to those opinions. So let's get into some big talking points for this matchup before we really get into the nitty-gritty of who actually I think is going to win. Some stats. We all know stats are a pretty important feature of games like this, and the head-to-head between these two sides, 25 times they've played. Hurricanes have won 14, Highlanders 11. I don't think that's bad. As a Highlanders fan, for me, I think that's a pretty good record for the Highlanders. They've had some abysmal years, as have the Hurricanes, mind you. So it really evens itself out to be quite an even matchup between these two sides. In Wellington, they've played 9 times, and it's actually the Highlanders who have a 5-win, 4-loss record there, which is just absurd to think that the Highlanders have gone to Wellington 9 times and they've won 5. Over 50% is huge. That will be a massive part for the Highlanders' psyche going into this one. Of course, the last time they met, another thing which is going to play on their psyche is the thumping that they received in Napier, 56-20. That scoreline was, if my memory serves me correctly. The Hurricanes absolutely demolished what some may say, I guess Highlanders big fans will say it was a bit of a big team. The All Blacks were missing from the Highlanders team. And let's be fair, they are a huge key to the side. So the two teams have been announced, and well, unsurprisingly, really, neither team has changed at all. There's just the one bracket with Ardie Savea. Of course, we'll get to him in a second. He's bracketed with Callum Gibbons. But the only actual change is Marty Banks for the Highlanders coming onto the bench for Trent Renata on the substitutes bench. So that's the only real change. The starting 15s at the moment, both are scheduled to stay the same. So the teams, you'll know them from last weekend as well. The key men are all there. There's no big injuries apart from Ardie Savea, which will go into him straight away. Ardie Savea, if he is out, take nothing away here from Callum Gibbons, who is a good player, a solid player, but Ardie Savea, well, you think Julian is a fantastic talent. Well, goodness me, guys, let me tell you something. Ardie Savea is going to be huge, and it's strange to not see him in that All Black side after how he's performed, and it's almost that could possibly be what's taken him to the next level that we seen from him last weekend against the Brumbies. But Ardie Savea, he will be an All Black in the future, and remember, it just takes one little injury to someone in that All Black squad, and I think he's going to be first cab off the rank as far as back rows go, straight into that All Black squad for the international season coming up. So that's the only real iffy thing about it. Nehemiah Scudder is fit, and of course all the big names are there for both sides as well. But Ardie Savea could be a huge loss. If he does not get fit for the game, will be a big loss for not only the Hurricanes, also the fans and neutrals out there who want to see a great game of rugby. He is a fantastic player to watch, and him being missing could have a massive impact on the game. But Callum Gibbons, I think, for the overall thing for the Hurricanes, will be a more than adequate replacement at 7 for the Hurricanes. So these two sides, of course, the Highlanders won the last 4 matches at Westpac, yet this season they weren't beaten both home and away by the Hurricanes. So before the last hammering of 56-20, whatever that was, the last 13 matches before that one, there was less than 7 points between the two sides going into that match. So that is 13 matches between the two sides that have had less than 7 points between them. Now that is a huge amount of matches to have such a little margin, but we're going into a final. So for me, I think at points like this, I've mentioned a lot of stats already, but I really don't think that stats like this matter. They're going to go into this match. It is a grand final. It's a grand final. It doesn't matter how well you played 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 2 seasons ago. It doesn't matter. It's a grand final. It's winner take all. There is going to be massive regret for the losing side here if they cannot get that one extra match in and another win. It's going to be the biggest games of these two sides' careers. There's no question about that when it comes to Super Rugby. This is as good as it gets, and for two teams who are yet to win the competition, it does not get bigger. It does not get bigger at all. So stats, although there's a lot being bandied about as well in the media as well. Things like the Highlanders having more playoff caps as well as the Hurricanes. As I've mentioned, there's just so many different stats, but in the end I think it's going to come down to a couple of things. Mainly and mostly will be just the mental side of the game. That is always such a barrier for some players and some teams. The mental barrier of playing in the cauldron, the final two sides. That's going to be a big thing. And of course it's going to be the plan, the game plan. Is it going to work? That's something else we will touch on again very soon for these two sides as a game plan. But it's just going to be down to luck. It's going to be down to executing the basics and all that cliche rugby stuff. It all comes back to that, and really, I can't see this one having too many points between it, but I fully expect a lot of points will be scored. So key players for these two sides is really, it goes without saying, it's another point I've got is that it's going to be between these key players. For the Hurricanes, it'll be Nonu and Conrad Smith. Their brawn, their wits between those two, and how they use Julian Savea and Nehe Milner-Skudder. That's what the Hurricanes need to use. That's what their go-to thing has to be. Nonu and Smith, they are the leaders. And Nonu's had a fantastic season as well. But Conrad Smith, he really is the brains behind this operation. And you go back 3 seasons ago when he was saying about how these players are learning. They're getting into learning about Super Rugby and building as people as well as a team. Well, look, isn't he the smart cookie now, looking at this side in a Super Rugby final, only losing 2 matches all year? Conrad Smith, he is one smart cookie indeed. So that's going to be not their game plan, but that's going to be what they need to do. That's going to be their key players and how they use them as well. It's going to be up to those guys to know when to give their key ball runners like Savea and Milner-Skudder the ball. On the other side of the occasion, it's going to be the two Smiths for the Highlanders, Ben Smith and Aaron Smith. And you have to say, Ben Smith has been good, but Aaron Smith has been phenomenal. He, in my opinion, right now, is one of the best rugby players in the world. No question about it. He is just that good at the moment. It's almost unexplainable how well he's playing at the moment. He is just making everyone else look like monkeys around there. Ben Smith and Aaron Smith, it's going to be how and where they use players in their backline like Fekitoa, Naholo, and to probably maybe a lesser form as well, Patrick Osborne. That's key in their backline, Smith and how they direct play, because let's be fair, they are the brains of that operation. They know how to run, they know how that team ticks, and they will really run the show. Well, they'll plan to run the show anyway, and that is what their key players are going to be. So if Ardie Savea is fit from both these two sides, there is going to be no changes to the starting 15, which leads me to another point that I think the continuity that these two sides have built up from consistently having a very similar group of players and the overall squad has been not too disrupted. Sure, they've both had a lot of injuries as well, but the continuity of staying with the same squad has helped this team, help both these two teams get as far as they have and keep the form that they have as well. But in the end, I just think as well, along with that it is the two best sides in the competition, especially now, form-wise and season overall-wise. These two sides are the best two in the competition. Not only the fact they finished 1 and 2, but look who they've knocked off. The Hurricanes, sure, they got an easier ride, but the Highlanders, goodness me, they had to do it all, didn't they? Beat the Waratahs. That's their toughest ask, but the end of the season, they were really on top of their game, and a lot of people discount them. I'll be fair, I discounted them. I picked the Waratahs to beat them. I thought they'd struggle to get in that top 6 as well, with a few weeks of the competition remaining, but boy oh boy, they've been phenomenal, and it's just easily the two best sides in the competition. And how often can you say that about the Highlanders and the Hurricanes, which, to be fair, over the last 20 years, there's not often you can say that for either of the sides singularly, let alone together for these sides. So for all you Australian viewers out there, of course, I'm probably a bit bitter that there is no Australian side in there when there could have been all possibility that it was an all-Australian final. Just on the recent events as well, Wellington is in the North Island. For those of you who don't know, that's queuing to you, Australian commentary side man, whoever you were, saying that the South Island will be really up for this home match for Wellington. Wow, goodness me, that's pretty bad if you have to call on that. But that's another matter for another day. But it's interesting that how much interest would be going on overseas for this match as well. I don't imagine Australia and South Africa are really getting too into it, which is no surprise given that they have no sides in it. But Super Rugby Grand Final, I just think this is a New Zealand thing. I think the other countries are really probably going to ignore this, and they're fully concentrating now on their international season. So that's going to be a big part for New Zealand, and of course their international season starts just next week as well, on Wednesday, with the match against Samoa. So the Highlanders, we've talked about in the last piece, with a review I should say, of the semi-finals, that the Highlanders' main reason for winning was of course their game plan against the Waratahs, pinning them down in their own half, really putting the pressure on them, not letting them out of their own territory. That was the game plan that really did it for them. I don't know if that's going to work here for the Hurricanes. That worked definitely against the Chiefs, it worked against the Waratahs. I'm sure they'll start with that kind of idea, but the Highlanders, they may need a plan B, because this Hurricane side, they will score tries from anywhere on the field you give them the ball. The same can be said for the Highlanders as well, when you got a back three like Ben Smith, Naholo and Osborne, definitely capable of running if they can get Fikatoa Buckman as well. This is a backline that will run 100 metres and score a try for their side. And on the same side of the coin, Marshall, Mimuskata, Smith, Nonu, Savia, Barrett even for that matter. Goodness me, Barrett is such a joy to watch when he is in good touch as well. I really hope that the number 10s have a good game as well. Sopawanga versus Barrett. It's almost like it's an All Black preview as well, with those two possibly will be gunning out for some time in the number 10 black jumper very soon. Maybe, I'm presuming Carter's going to get injured or left out somewhere along the way. But again, we go back to the game plan where this all started. The Highlanders, they will definitely need a plan B, because I feel that the Hurricanes will be up to this. They'll run it from anywhere and they will give it a good nudge. And it just might not be the same as playing the Chiefs or the Waratahs. As the Hurricanes, they're going to play the same way they have all season. It's not really carefree, although some may call it that, but it's the backing of their ability, the know that they can score a try from anywhere. They've got danger men throughout their backline, and they've got the ability to get up the other end of the field, make the bust, and make something out of a desperate situation. I don't think they're going to play it safe. I really hope neither side plays it safe at all, and they both go hell for leather and score points, score tries, line breaks, because from a New Zealand perspective, this is really a win-win situation here. I'm not personally myself too worried whether the Hurricanes or the Highlanders win. Of course, Highlanders would be nice being from here. It might be good for this lower South Island part of the country to get some trophy like that. But in the end, it's a New Zealand side that will win the competition, which is number one priority, really. I think after those semi-finals, it was like, whew, It's New Zealand versus New Zealand. We've won no matter what. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a great match. I hope, that there's lots of points, lots of tries, and it is a fantastic game. And no one important gets injured as well, which is going to be a big part. So on the final couple of points here, the benches for these two sides, something that most of the time is a bit forgotten about, but for especially New Zealand sides this season, the bench has been such a key thing. We compare to Australian and South African sides here, and it's just the bench is so strong here for these sides that quite often throughout the season, and even now, all of them really, all of these bench players could start and wouldn't look too out of place unless it was a key player. Of course, if you took a Smith out of either of those sides or something, you're going to lose a lot regardless. But when you look at these benches, when you got the likes of Matu'u, Chris Eves has started a lot this season, Tumunga Allen, Mark Abbott, possibly Blake Thompson has started a lot of matches. Chris Smiley as well has been there when Perenara was out. Ray Lilo played a lot when Nonu was out. And of course, Matt Proctor has spent time on the wing for the Hurricanes while Corey Jane underwent numerous injury concerns. So for the Hurricanes, that's their bench. And that is all players that, if they were in the starting 15, you'd go, yeah, well, they're not a bad player. That's decent enough. As for the Highlanders, it's the same story. Ash Dixon, Daniel Leonard-Brown, Ross Geldenhayes, Joe Wheeler, Gareth Evans, Shane Christie, who's been injured but really is fighting for a starting spot. Fumiaki Tanaka, a Japanese international. He is such a quick little nippy player, but still, no Aaron Smith. And of course, Marty Banks at the end. He's won numerous matches for the Highlanders this year as well with his goal kicking. All those players have started throughout the season. It's depth within the squad, and it's just such an asset to be able to bring a player on in the last 20 odd minutes, and they have such an awesome impact. That is going to be a big part of this match if those two sides can really use their bench as well and have that impact coming onto the field late on. So that is really all my talking points coming into this match. Obviously, the big thing, the key point will be who is going to win this grand final. Well, to be honest, I haven't thought a huge amount about who's going to win because being, like I said before, Hurricanes, Highlanders, I'm not too worried about who wins. It comes down to the head and the heart thing. My heart says Highlanders by 4 points. The head, on the other hand, it says the Hurricanes. You cannot argue with their form. I think Ardie Savea will be a big thing if he can play, but I don't think not having him will lose them this match. I just think the X factor of some key... It's too hard to pick, isn't it? Naholo, I'm interested to see how he goes against Julian Savea again, because when they met last time, he was really off his game with Savea putting in some big hits against him as well, and really running over the top of him. So that's going to interest me from this match as well. But I think, in all honesty, Hurricanes will win it by 8 points. It's going to be close. I hope it's high scoring. I hope it's saying like 43-35 kind of thing. I was saying it's going to be really close, lots of points, close and exciting, and a real spectacle for the game of rugby. Now, that is my opinion, guys, so remember, I want to know what you think as well. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think will be a key player for either of these two sides? Who is going to the game? That is something I'd love to know. I'd love to... The atmosphere at this is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be sold out. The atmosphere is going to be spectacular. And it's something I'd love to go to. I'd love to go to a match like this. Super Rugby Final, Hurricanes, Highlanders. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Of course, subscribe if you're new. And hit that thumbs up if you love these discussion chats as well. It is me with you guys. So I want your opinions on this game as well as we wrap this one up. Thanks for sticking around and enjoy the final. For everyone who's going to watch it, let me know what you think about it coming up as well. And I'll see you for some more rugby discussions in the near future. If you tuned into some other videos, you may notice I'm doing some things with World Cup squads as well, where I am looking for some people from countries all around the world that are involved in the World Cup. If you are from one of those countries and you have the equipment available and the time, the knowledge as well as an important thing, to have a chat to me about what you think about your World Cup squad, do get in touch with me. There's contact details all over the channel homepage, so get into that as well. And I will see you all next time for plenty more rugby. Until then, take care.